Howdy all, welcome to Railroad Adventures of Kendall. Now this is a special bonus video for those who want to learn more about the locomotives and equipment of the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company. It also highlights the two lone survivors of this unique logging operation. Now before we get into that, let me reiterate what we talked about so far about the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company. To reiterate, the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company operated between 1921 until it went bankrupt in 1933. And this included all operations within Pinedale, the Minarets of Western, the Sugar Pine Lumber Company trackage, and Central Camp. Now for the section between Pinedale and Wishon, this was handled by Mikado Class 282 tender locomotives, while the Sugar Pine Lumber Company used large tank engines with the same wheel arrangement. Because the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company was one of the first customers for this type of locomotive, tank engines like these have informally been called Minarets. However, there was actually one true Minaret on the roster, Sugar Pine Lumber Company number 5. Ordered in 1927 and sporting a 210-2 Santa Fe wheel arrangement, this rather large locomotive was brought in for direct services between Central Camp and Pinedale. This locomotive handled 25 empty log cars of the 4% grade to Central Camp by itself. Thus, by double heading with any of the M&W tender engines on the Sugar Pine Lumber Company's trackage above Bass Lake, number 5 could return a full train of 35 empties to Central Camp on a single run. The only other locomotive on the roster was a 2-truck shay that mainly handled switching operations around the lumber mill at Pinedale. After the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company went bankrupt, the Southern Pacific purchased all of the locomotives in 1935, as well as the remaining trackage that will become the Pinedale branch. Southern Pacific, in turn, would sell these locomotives to other short line and lumber operations, such as the Longville Lumber Company operations in Longview, Washington, which purchased ex-Minarets and Western 104. And while the majority of the locomotives were sold off to other railroads and subsequently scrapped, including the lone giant Minaret class locomotive, I'm happy to report that we have 2 surviving locomotives from the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company. First off, for the Minarets and Western Railroad, we have M&W number 101. Built in 1920 by the American Locomotive Company, this engine was ordered by the Oregon American Lumber Company. However, the railroad that was intended to use them, the Portland, Astoria, and Pacific Railroad, was never completed, so it and 2 other locomotives sat idled until they could be sold to other railroads. 101 was sold to the Minarets and Western Railway in 1921 and stayed on the line until the company went bankrupt in 1933. After being absorbed by the Southern Pacific, 101 retained its number, but was later sold to locomotive rebuilder and reseller Birmingham Rail and Locomotive Company, which sold it to the Aberdeen and Rockfish Railroad in 1935 as their number 40. It operated on the A&R, pulling freight and passenger trains until about 1950, when it was retired and stored in their engine house. It was in the engine house where it remained until it was discovered by an employee of the Valley Railroad of Essex, Connecticut. Purchased in 1977, this locomotive has remained on the Valley Railroad ever since and has become a beloved steam locomotive within New England. Representing the Sugar Pine Lumber Company's operations around Central Camp is Sugar Pine number 4. After the Sugar Pine Lumber Company went bankrupt in 1933, the engine was purchased by the Pacific Lumber Company of Eureka, California, and renumbered to 37. After the locomotive was retired in the 1960s, the engine went through multiple private owners, including Frank Bayless, a rail fan, before starting its heritage career on the Wawa and Concordville Railroad in 1966. In 1966, number 37 was sold to the Wilmington and Western Railroad of Northern Delaware before retiring in 1990. In November 2003, the locomotive was sold to the Timber Heritage Association of Semoole, California, but was stored on the Strasburg Railroad, pending on full operational restoration. In October 2023, the THA sold number 37 to the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugar Creek, Ohio, where it's now part of a large steam locomotive collection. I hope you enjoyed this unique dive into the locomotives used on the Fresno Sugar Pine Lumber Company operations on both the Minarets in Western and the Sugar Pine Lumber Company trackage around Central Camp. If you enjoy it, maybe we can do more deep dives into locomotives used on unique railroad operations. I plan on doing the same thing for the San Joaquin and Eastern out of Auberry, California, when we take a deep dive into the lone survivor of that particular railroad, Santa Maria Valley, number 205. But until then, I hope you had a good day in watching this video. Well, that's all the time we have here on Railroad Adventures of Kendall. See you later, folks, and may your gifts bless the world.